So Dr. Stone has finally arrived, one of the most anticipated shows of this summer 2019 anime season, and I was pretty excited for it myself, though I will say the trailer did have me a little cautious just based on how the comedy was being perceived. It just almost felt like maybe it would be a little too much for me, but I'm happy to say walking out of episode 1, I am a Dr. Stone fan. I love the banter, the dynamic, the chemistry between our central two characters and just what this world is representing in terms of a narrative. I think this will be one of the most unique anime to follow over the next couple of seasons because this will be a two-cour. Dr. Stone was utterly fantastic. The brilliance of this first episode is how they started off in such a typical high school situation that anime is known for. You kind of have a person who is very much attracted to a very pretty girl of the school who maybe in most situations would be out of his league. He's kind of a big dolt. He may not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but he has a good heart. This man is named Taiju. And I love this man because he is so just out there, he's charismatic, and he definitely has a personality that it's charming. Even if he is a little too clueless for his own good, he just is someone who naturally is fun to be around. And I love how he goes to his friend Sensuke and I love the intro to their friendship. He literally tries to give him gasoline as a form of love potion, but because he trusts that he would not cheat his way to love, that he wouldn't drink it, so there would actually be no harm there. Immediately, you kind of get an understanding of their relationship. You have a genius, and then you have someone who's a little too clueless for his own good, but obviously is muscular. Now, these types of dynamics, they have been seen a lot, and typically, what I was expecting just based on the preview was it would be something that would be very toxic and very manipulative, as you typically see with the genius and dumb kind of friend. And even if he's not dumb, he's just a little too clueless for his own good. I mean, you can look at kind of classic pairings such as Pinky and the Brain. It was a very abusive relationship, and one could say toxic. And I was figuring that is what we would get here, and I'm very happy to say that's not what we see here whatsoever. Even though there is some name calling, there is some insults, at the end of the day, it does feel like friends who kind of have each other's backs when they need it. And I love how, before the world completely goes and just gets covered in stone, all living life is just kind of locked into place for some reason or another. I just love how it starts off in such a typical high school situation, even though it's a little not so typical just because of one of our characters being a brainiac who just tries to poison his friend, but not try to poison him because he trusts he wouldn't try to cheat his way to love. I love how that's the intro to just the world essentially ending and being reverted back to the Stone Age. Thousands of years later, a couple of them wake up, of course being our central two characters. This is such a fun premise just because you don't get too many anime that are set essentially at the beginning of the world. And this is interesting because we reached modern civilization, but because of some weird occurrence that we don't know how it happened, if it was fantasy or scientific, something happened that locked them into place and kept them alive for so long, at least for some of them, and just based on natural corrosion, some of them broke away, and now they have to rebuild civilization back to where they were, essentially from the Stone Age. So that's incredibly interesting because not only do you have someone who is a genius, you kind of just immediately trust in, yeah, if someone could rebuild civilization, it'd probably be Sensuke. And I love that. It's such a fun premise at the core, but because you have two characters who are just complete polar opposites, but just mesh so naturally, someone who doesn't want to do the hard work and just is kind of jumping for joy at squishing grapes to make wine, it's just so fun seeing the two kind of butt heads, but not feel like they are manipulating each other, but truly are friends. And I love that because this man, sure, he's a genius and he could easily have probably found someone else to do his grunt work for him. But at the end of the day, this episode started off by him trusting in this dolt of a character to get a girl who most people would think is out of his league. Everyone was saying, let's bet money. Let's bet money that he's not gonna get her. He's gonna get rejected. And the only one who believed in him was his one and only friend, and I love that. It's just such a fun concept at the end of the day, and you can tell that at first glance you might think you know what to expect with this pairing, brainiac and dumb character, and is going to be very manipulative, but at the end of the day, they actually transcended what I thought they would be, and actually became characters I wouldn't compare to other pairings with a similar setting, because I honestly thought we would get a Pinky and the Brain situation here based on the trailer, and just based on the comedy overall, but I was very pleasantly surprised. I just love just the look of this anime. It's very browns and greens, which is what you would expect for essentially the new Stone Age of modern civilization. It just really brought out that forest imagery and it felt like we were back in the past. But the thing that really tied together just the presentation was actually the audio design for one of the tracks that we kind of get this like silent montage where pretty much they're just working, they're trying to make wine because they think alcohol will be the key in terms of cracking the code of how to break the stone. And they have this track that feels feels not modern, not anything that you would typically hear with a lot of anime soundtracks, something that just feels like it's a part of nature. Something that doesn't feel artificial or handcrafted, it feels like something that is pulled from nature, and the fact that we're surrounded by so much trees and just what Earth used to look like before humans kind of trampled all over it and shaped it into what modern civilization is currently with today's standards, the good and the bad, it's just nice to have just that atmosphere kind of bring together that art so well. Because sure, there's some shots that may not be super hyper realistic, but at the end of the day, I thought the art design from both the character models, which really, when you have Sensuke, like, you can't even compare this guy to most character designs. You might be able to for Taiju maybe, but for the most part, these character designs are pretty damn unique and kind of feel very retro, like a classic shonen, but with the art design, it really pops and really makes you just immerse in this world. Even though it's technically the end of the world, it just feels so goddamn immersive. The comedy, like I mentioned though, holy shit, that was funny. They kind of sprinkled it throughout this episode where just the natural banter between the two is funny, it's charming, it's not like kind of laugh out loud, you're always going to be kind of rolling on the floor laughing, but there's a couple of shots where it just pops up and you just have to laugh out loud. It's just like, holy shit, there's natural chemistry, it doesn't feel like it's an anime joke, even though just the way they kind of chip the art style, it feels like shonen comedy. At the end of the day, just the way they were talking with one another and just the natural comedy that would just occur from it, from just learning how to shave with basically shells. It's just the natural stuff that you just kind of get, like, why this would be funny to the other or painful for the other who is kind of having to deal with the just tragedy of their new life right now. It's just fun. It absolutely is. And I think the idea of just slowly cracking more and more people kind of awake, whether it be at a rapid pace or something a lot slower, because they will have to make a lot of this wine and whatnot, but the more manpower they have, the easier it will be probably to make the kind of juice to kind of crack the overall stone that is trapping them. I think it's going to be fun to see how a bunch of characters, be it if we have a large supporting cast or just a smaller supporting cast, will be able to rebuild civilization over this two core. I have heard some people say that it kind of takes the first arc or so before it really gets going, but just based on what I'm seeing, based on how they're kind of directing the comedy, the slice of life, just the simple like, hey, this is what type of food we need to eat, this is how we're going to survive, this is how we're going to build, I would be down for just a slice of life of characters rebuilding civilization. If they have more serious and dramatic or just absolutely gut-punchingly hilarious scenes, I'm down for that too. I'm really invested in Dr. Stone at this point in time. The voice actors kind of hit it out of the park. I thought just the idea of being a brainiac, but also a little bit of a smartass, but also a caring character all at the end of the day. Sensuke he absolutely hit it out of the park. It feels like a character you naturally want to follow, and he doesn't feel like a manipulative kind of mad scientist. And then for Taiju, it's just, holy shit, he doesn't feel like just the clumsy idiot. He feels like someone who may not be book smart, but he has his own intelligence, he has his own feelings, and he's a good-hearted character at the end of the day. It just feels like the voice actors brought their A game, and the production for the first episode was absolutely top-notch. I was really invested in this episode, and I walked in a little cautious. I thought, yes, I could enjoy this show, but based on just the trailer with how they were directing the comedy, I thought maybe this wouldn't be for me. Maybe this wouldn't be the hype show of the season, at least for myself, and I'm really happy to say that this was the most impressive first episode I've watched as of right now. Still got Fire Force later today, but still, like, this is a great first episode, and I could understand why this was so anticipated for this season here. The comedy's on point, the just general slice of life reactions and just kind of situations are pretty on point, and I just love the idea of having modern minds kind of rebuild in a Stone Age to modern civilization. And can you do it faster than you originally did when you all first started off as cavemen back in the day? That's going to be pretty fun. Definitely has its anime charms and just its overall absurdity, just the idea that, you know, you could survive all this time and just kind of crack the code with alcohol and a couple of smart minds, but still, like, I think they have an interesting premise here, something that I can't even compare to other anime that I've seen, and I've seen quite a few hundred over the years here, and I like that. I like how a modern shonen can do something still interesting in today's age. It does have its influences from its just comedy and just general presentation, but the core structure to the story, it feels totally unique, and that has me excited because they could really go dramatic, they could go funny, they could go slice of life, and honestly, I'd be fine for either of those situations. I mentioned a little earlier about how I really like the character designs, but I do appreciate the fact that even though our central two characters are from the same series, they don't actually feel like they're kind of from the same series all at the same time just because of the hair design. I love Sensuke's just almost Yu-Gi-Oh-like hairstyle, just so bombastic and out there, really selling his mad scientist persona. And then you have our basic, normal, plain character who is a little dolty, but he feels almost completely different. But at the same time, they obviously mesh well within this world because of their face structures and things like that. but I love it because their characters are what really is selling this show at this point in time. The premise is interesting, the premise could pretty much work in any medium, but that really natural and just really interesting chemistry is what's keeping me here and really anticipating the future of this series. So happy that it is such a natural friendship that they can insult one another, they can walk all over each other, but at the end of the day, they do care for one another, and if everyone goes against them, they probably would have each other's back, and maybe they will fight, maybe they'll have falling outs. I just feel as if this is such an interesting friendship and pairing that it looks so basic, so cliche at a surface level, but I was immediately impressed by it before even the Stone Age occurred, and watching the Stone Age occur and just seeing how they were interacting with one another, even though there was, oh yeah, you can do the kind of shitty work, you can crush the grapes, and I'll do all the brainiac stuff. They felt natural and just like friends, and you immediately felt like you could trust in each other for caring for one another, and maybe they'll completely stab each other in the back in the future, I don't know, but right now, I'm really enjoying this relationship, because I thought I knew what to expect, and they immediately proved me wrong, and that's how you know you have a great first episode. Definitely my favorite first episode as of right now. Let me know what everyone thought. If you read the original source material, if you're anime originals like myself, what did you think? Did you enjoy the just overall character dynamics as much as myself, or was there something else you wanted to see with them? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have any news. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.